We are 4 days out from UFC 292, and I'm going to give my predictions and breakdowns for all the fights that I have yet to discuss. I'm talking Neil Magny. I'm talking Garry. Can he be the first one to put away Neil Magny since 2018? Neil Magny is very hard to put away. We have the return of Chito Vera. He'll be fighting Pedro Munhoz. I think that Pedro Munhoz is getting overrated just a little bit, but we'll get to that fight in a bit, of course. And of course, the return of Chris Weidman and the GOAT, Gerald Meerschaert. Zhang Weili is back, and at the end of the video, I'll get into the main event as well. And guys, everything is going to be in the timestamp, so if you just want my take on a particular fight, make sure to go to the description. But without further ado, let's just get right into it. Let's waste no more time. The first fight that I'm going to break down is Gerald Meerschaert versus Andre Petroski. Guys, I just don't understand how I would ever go against Gerald Meerschaert. I understand that Andre Petroski is a good grappler, but at the end of the day, dude, I'm not picking against the GOAT. I'm not picking against a guy that gets it done time and time again, even when he gets KO'd stiff. All right, even when he gets absolutely embarrassed and one punch KO'd by Khamzat Chimaev, I'll never pick against him. Guys, cutting the bullshit. I'm probably going to have to go with the guy that can last 3 rounds grappling. And you know who can do that? Andre Petroski. Now, I was watching his fight back with Wellington Turman, which took place on the MSG card back last November. That's Alex Pereira's training partner. That's the guy that just dropped down into the welterweight class because he wasn't good enough to cut it at middleweight, and he just lost to Randy Brown. Bro, Andre Petroski didn't look a whole lot good. Now, that was a pretty big step up in competition from Nick Maximov, who he subbed in like the first 2 minutes. And again, we're talking about a guy that's actually a pretty decent grappler that can impose his will, but he's still a sloppy, boppy man on the feet. Andre Petroski has like these stiff fucking punches. He's got those little T-Rex arms, and he just looks real ugly. And I was honestly considering picking the GOAT. And I know that sounds crazy. What do you mean considering? Of course you're going to pick him, right? No, but listen. I then watched Gerald Meerschaert and his fight back with, what's his name, Joe Pyfer. And Gerald Meerschaert looks 3 times worse. You know what I mean? Andre Petroski, he's a big, strong, powerful guy, right? Of course, coming from that wrestling background, but he doesn't have a lot of power in his hands. He's got like a thud at the end of those punches. Gerald Meerschaert, he only has thud at the end of those punches when you're completely gassed out in front of him. And Andre Petroski has a pretty bad gas tank. I'll just say that, dude. He looked like he was getting super tired midway through the first round with Wellington Turman. It's when he gets a hold of you. It's when he starts grappling. That's when he starts to feel more natural. And that's when he started to run away with the fight with Wellington Turman, in which he was getting tired. He was struggling in the second round, and he went out there in the third round and got the takedown, started to impose his will. He has a bunch of finishes in the UFC up until his last fight. I'd say that Gerald Meerschaert at this point in his career looks like absolute shit, dude. He looks terrible on the feet. Like, he's actually not that good. Dude, he beat a bunch of NPCs. Like, Bruno Silva's not an NPC, right? Bruno Silva's actually pretty dangerous, but he has a horrible fight IQ. Horrible fight IQ. Of course, Gerald Meerschaert can take advantage of a gassed out fool like Bruno Silva, who basically just goes out there swinging for the fences no matter what. And of course, he has a win over like Mac McMurdo, and Mac McMurdo is your typical NPC that just floats around, not really doing a whole lot. He's not that impressive on the feet. He's like a very basic fighter that just kind of has a little bit of hype because of the last name Mac McMurdo. I don't care how foreign it sounds. He's terrible, okay? Gerald Meerschaert can beat those guys. Dustin Stoltzfus. But Dustin Stoltzfus, the guy that got dusted up by Abu Smagomedov in the first round, Dustin Stoltzfus is terrible. He has a bunch of L's in the UFC. Gerald Meerschaert beats those kinds of guys. Andre Petroski, he's still a middleweight. He's sloppy on the feet. He's got these little T-Rex arms. He has really, I don't know, it's just so fucking ugly to watch him throw his hands. But he's got some thud, and he's got good cardio when it comes to the grappling. He's a middleweight, but he can impose his will. I like that, and I think this is your classic wrestling trumps the pure jiu-jitsu matchup. Now, Andre Petroski was getting his neck caught up a couple of times by Wellington Turman. Now, Wellington Turman's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm going to bet that Gerald Meerschaert is more dangerous if he gets a hold of your neck, right? This is probably a guy that has a better chance to sub you with a guillotine. Petroski was leaving his neck out there on a silver platter a couple of times, and if there's anyone that's going to gas out and get subbed by shooting a takedown, it might just be Andre Petroski. I can kind of smell a Gerald Meerschaert second or third round submission with a guillotine, but I think that Andre Petroski's getting better. He's still young. I think he's got a good chin. And Gerald Meerschaert, dude, I just watched his last fight with Piper. Oh my goodness, he looks so slow, stiff as a board, and I can't pick him. He looked terrible. It was only a matter of time before he got KO'd. A lot of people were picking Andre Petroski by KO on the feet. I don't see it. This guy ain't got a whole lot to offer on the feet either. Terrible gas tank. I just think he's going to be able to get a hold of Gerald Meerschaert, camp in half guard, maybe get into side control and maybe ride the back at times. And I think that Gerald Meerschaert, that's where he's best, but Andre Petroski's got a gas tank when he can actually get a hold of you. That's where he feels most natural. I'm going to go with Andre Petroski, and I'm going to pick him to win this fight by a decision. I'm not going to be shocked if he gasses out and gets subbed with a guillotine, though, because his neck is there for the taking when he shoots takedowns sometimes, and his gas tank, very questionable. These are usually the guys that get finished by Gerald Meerschaert. I don't see him having the ability to knock out Meerschaert early, but ultimately, I think he'll be able to survive. I think he'll be able to get a hold of Gerald, and he'll do just fine on the ground if he's in a dominant position. So Andre Petroski's getting it done. He's going to beat the GOAT. Damon Blackshear versus Mario Bautista. This fight was announced, I think today or yesterday. I'm pretty happy about this, man. This is a record-setting turnaround. Damon Blackshear fought on last week's fight night, which was what? 2 days ago, 3 days ago, getting a twister submission, the third ever twister submission in UFC history. But who is it over? Jose Johnson? An absolute can, if you ask me. Like, literally a guy that hasn't fought since the Dana White Contender Series last year. And here's the thing. Jose Johnson had a decision win on the Dana White Contender Series. And I'm just going to say this. If you're getting a decision on the Contender Series, unless you're fighting like an absolute freak of nature that we just don't know that person is a freak of nature that's also going to be like a top 5 guy in the UFC someday, if you get a decision on the Dana White Contender Series, you're getting a contract that you may not even deserve so that you can go out there and lose to someone like Damon Blackshear. I'm telling you this right now. A lot of these Dana White Contender Series guys are getting contracts way too easily, where you're supposed to actually have a good, impressive performance, bro. Jose Johnson got subbed, and I'm not surprised. Damon Blackshear has a good grappling background. The thing is, though, he's doing this to cans, man. He lost to Farid Basharat, which is just one of those hyped up brothers from the UK, those decision merchants. And to be honest, while I was watching that fight, his striking looked like piss poor, man. And this is what I have to say about Damon Blackshear. I know he beat Luan Lacerda and TKO'd him, but that was on the ground. That was a ground and pound TKO. Again, he can finish people with his grappling. On the feet, Damon Blackshear isn't that good. And you look at him, he's a very heavily muscled, shredded guy. You would expect him to be quick twitch. He's strong, he has that grappling strength, but he's not fast at all. Mario Bautista is very fast on the feet. He's quick twitch, he's explosive. He mixes it up more. Throws a lot of kicks, he throws a lot of body shots. And he has some pop in his hands too. And he's just more experienced. He's fought a lot of big names. He's fought Corey Sandhagen. Now he's lost to Corey Sandhagen, but my point is he's had fights that are, you know, relatively big names for the UFC. Brian Kelleher, that's a guy that's been tried, tested, and proven in the game, and he subbed Brian Kelleher in the first round. Mario Bautista's grappling is really, really good. He's got a wrestling background, man. This guy was mauling, what's his name, Guido Canetti, picked him up multiple times, slammed him, just made him look like a rag doll, and choked him out in the first round. He's a finisher as well. He destroyed Benito Lopez, subbed him too. Now, Benito Lopez, a can, I'll just say that. He's not that good, but at least Mario Bautista's more experienced, and I think he's the more well-rounded fighter. I think Mario Bautista is going to beat Damon Blackshear by a decision. Again, Blackshear's good. He's 29 years old, but this is also a quick turnaround. I don't really know if I'm going to be picking a guy that just fought last week that's going to have to go through another weight cut. And if you look at him, he is very, very lean. He's shredded. Whenever you're lean and shredded in whatever weight class that you're in, that means that you're hardly holding any fat, which means that you're basically pretty big for the division. He's going to have a tough weight cut. I think he's just taking this for money. If he loses on short notice, he knows it's not that big of a deal, especially when it's to Mario Bautista. This is a guy that has a lot of hype. He's got 4 wins in a row. So I'm going to go with Mario Bautista. I think he's going to be able to outpoint Damon Blackshear on the feet. He's going to have a speed advantage. I think he's going to have a bit of a power advantage. The weight cut is definitely something that's going to affect Damon Blackshear. If anything, he's going to be a tiny bit slower than he usually is on the feet. Maybe not as durable. And this is already a guy that, in my opinion, isn't really good on the feet, dude. He's not. and you're not really going to out-grapple Mario Bautista. I've seen guys like Farid Basharat take down Damon Blackshear as well. And I know Farid Basharat's, got a grappling background too, but he ain't all that. I know he has the last name Basharat and people like to freak out about it, even though he's a fucking decision merchant. He's not that amazing. Mario Bautista is more proven. I think Mario will also be able to mix in takedowns here and there, get on top of Damon Blackshear. If he gets his back taken, I think he'll do just fine. I think he'll survive. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Mario Bautista by decision. I think he's going to outpoint him and will beat him that way just by being more well-rounded. Gregory Rodrigues and Denis Tiuliulin. I'm really looking forward to this fight. I think this has potential to be fight of the night with Denis Tiuliulin's forward pressure. He's got a very scrappy style, great cardio as well, tough as nails, long reach. I think he can pepper Gregory Rodrigues at range, but Gregory Rodrigues, guys, is actually more well-rounded than a lot of people like to give him credit for. And I'm going to talk about Young Park. That's a guy that I'm very high on, right? Young Park, the Iron Turtle. Well, both of these guys fought him. And Denis Tiuliulin got dominated by the Iron Turtle. Gregory Rodrigues finished the Iron Turtle by a TKO. Went to war with him a little bit on the feet because the Iron Turtle's pretty good like that. But he out-grappled him, man. He took him down. He took his back. Like, that's very impressive. Young Park has great grappling, and it's not like he destroyed him on the ground, but he controlled him. He took him down with ease multiple times. And Denis Tiuliulin's got a hole in this game, and that's the grappling. And here's the thing about Gregory Rodrigues. I've ranted about him. I've raved about him. I've said, how the fuck did this guy get so much hype just because he went to war with Chidi Njokuani? Listen, he's dangerous, okay? This guy doesn't have a good chin. I'm just going to say it how it is. I know he's been in some scraps. I know he's been in some wars. He doesn't really look that good when he eats a big shot. Like, it often catches him off guard. I don't like what I'm seeing in his body language when he catches a big shot. Now, Denis Tiuliulin doesn't have that much power, but he's got a really long reach, and he spars with Sean Strickland. He loves to go to war in the gym. He's very fucking durable, but he's got that dirty fucking style where he walks you down and he tries to break you with cardio and relentless pressure. He could sit behind his long reach. He's got really solid kicks. He's great in the clinch. He finished Jamie Pickett with his elbows and his knees in the clinch. He was hurting Jamie Pickett and dropping him with elbows, and then he finished him off with a big knee to the face. And I think that there's a chance that Denis Tiuliulin, if Gregory Rodrigues does not grapple, is gonna beat him. The thing is, Gregory Rodrigues does seem to have pretty good grappling. He was out grappling the Iron Turtle, and that's what Young Park does best. And Gregory Rodrigues, sure, he did get KO'd stiff, and he's been KO'd before by guys that aren't that good, like Jordan Williams is not a very good fucking guy. His chin, I don't like it. I think that if he starts slugging it out with Denis Tiuliulin's forward pressure, long reach, I think he can pop Gregory Rodrigues with big shots and catch him with like an elbow or a knee in the clinch. And I think that coming off of that KO, it's going to be bad news. But I'm ultimately going to go with Gregory Rodrigues, and I'm going to pick him to win this one by a submission or a decision. But if it's a stand-up battle and Gregory ends up not shooting, it's a 50-50 fight. It's anyone's fight. And I honestly wouldn't even mind Denis Tiuliulin winning the fight if that actually happens because of how durable he is, how great his cardio is, and Gregory Rodrigues' chin, it's suspicious. He is coming off that KO. Chris Weidman and Brad Tavares. Guys, if this was taking place a couple of years ago, like 2021, 2020, before the Uriah Hall leg break, I would be considering picking Chris Weidman in this fight because I honestly feel like they'd be a little bit of a mirror matchup on the feet, right? They're both not that special. Chris Weidman, I know a lot of people are big on him and high on him, and Chris Weidman in his prime was a different monster. He was good in his prime, 100%. He doesn't have the same kind of power. He doesn't have the same kind of speed. And I rewatched his fight with Omari Akhmadov. I know that's not prime Chris Weidman, but he looked like shit on the feet. And he has to take Brad Tavares down to win this fight. And you know what? At least he was able to take down Omari Akhmadov. That's a guy that has grappling as well. Took him down in the third round, took him down in the first round, but on the feet, he looked like shit. And Brad Tavares is a whole lot more dangerous than Omari Akhmadov. And I think that Chris Weidman, I honestly feel like he's either going to get injured in this fight. I know he's been saying that he wants to kick Brad Tavares as soon as the fight starts, as hard as he possibly can. And he's going to throw the kick at Brad Tavares' shin to test it out, to face his fears. Well, he'd be a damn fool to do that because Brad Tavares is going to be looking to check his kicks, knowing that that was Chris Weidman's last injury. So he's either going to get injured or he's just going to be an absolute pushover. Now, Brad Tavares, He's lost like 4 out of his last 5 fights. He lost to Dricus du Plessis. He got finished by Bruno Ferreira. He got finished by Edmund Shabazian. He hasn't been winning a whole lot. I know both of them have beaten Omari Akhmedov, but listen, Brad Tavares in his prime could not hold a candle to Chris Weidman in his prime. It's just that Weidman, bro, I've seen it time and time again, these old men coming off of horrible injuries that have had terrible career trajectories where he's getting KO'd by Jacare Souza and finished by Dominic Reyes, and Dominic Reyes is dangerous. That was up a weight class. But when you're getting KO'd by Jacare Souza, it's just a bad look, man. I think Brad Tavares is going to make Chris Weidman look like a pushover. I think he's just going to land a couple of good shots. Chris Weidman's going to go down, and he's going to beat him by like a TKO on the ground. I just think Chris Weidman's going to fumble. His body's going to fall apart in the cage. He's going to be sent back to the retirement home. I just think that he's not going to be as tough and as gritty as Brad Tavares at this point. I know Brad Tavares has lost a bunch of his last fights. He's lost, 4 out of his last 6 fights, 4 out of his last 5 fights. It's not looking good for Brad either, but Brad Tavares is just a whole lot better than Chris Weidman on the feet. He's faster, he's more powerful, he's more athletic, and Chris Weidman, sure, man, he's all right with his wrestling. Brad Tavares is good takedown defense. If Chris Weidman really goes for it early and imposes his will and puts everything in his training camp into wrestling, he can win this fight. I just think he's going to go out there and try to ease into it a little bit, and his body's going to come crumbling down. He's going to fall apart. And this is the thing. I think Brad Tavares, everything that he lands on Chris Weidman is going to take a massive toll on him, and I think he's going to TKO him. Marlon Vera versus Pedro Munhoz. This is a very interesting fight. There's not going to be a finish. I do not think we're going to see a finish. Even if this fight gets taken to the ground, both of them have good survivability. Both of them are extremely durable, and they have good enough jiu-jitsu to survive. But I'm going to be picking Pedro Munhoz, and I think he's going to get this one done by decision. Now, if you look at his last fight against Chris Gutierrez, I'm just going to say it like it is. He's not that impressive. And I've always talked about this with Pedro Munhoz. He's not that entertaining either. For whatever reason, I've never really been that big of a fan of his style. Again, he got a lot of hype after knocking out Cody Garbrandt, but since then he hasn't really been able to recreate that same kind of a war again. And I know that was just Cody dragging him into it. Pedro Munhoz is a lot smarter than that. He's pretty defensively sound. Of course, he's got a granite chin too. He was having a hard time kicking the lead leg of Chris Gutierrez, who's also a really good kicker that knows how to check kicks, that's light on his lead foot, that's always picking it up and getting out of the way of your kicks. Pedro Munhoz is one of his best weapons are his calf kicks. Marlon Vera is a lot heavier on his feet. He's a lot more plotty and flat-footed. And I think Pedro Munhoz's calf kicks, which were landing against Chris Gutierrez, and that's one of the reasons why he was able to hang in there with Chris Gutierrez in the second and third, even though he was still having trouble landing a lot of them, he's going to land them at a higher clip. And he throws a lot of them. He has very conditioned shins. Marlon Vera is a guy that is very low output, right? That tends to be a little bit of a slow starter. I think we're going to see Pedro Munhoz land these calf kicks at will. And I think he's going to hurt the movement of Marlon Vera. And he's basically just not going to get KO'd with a big hook. He's not going to get KO'd with a front kick. He's got a great chin. And honestly, guys, he has the grappling advantage too, man. He has the grappling advantage. He took down Chris Gutierrez. I don't know if he took him down. He knocked him down and then got on top of him and out-grappled him for the remainder of the first round. Both guys have tons of power. Pedro Munhoz, in my opinion, is the better grappler. And for that reason, I'm going to be picking him. He's more well-rounded. If he wants to, I think he has the ability to take Marlon Vera down, who is a pretty big guy, who he's not going to cut open with elbows, who he's not going to submit because Marlon Vera knows how to survive. But nonetheless, I think if he really wants to, he can control Marlon Vera for minutes at a time and just run away with his low calf kicks. And of course, one thing that he's going to have to work around is the reach disadvantage. Marlon Vera has a 5-inch reach advantage, right? That's going to be interesting to see, but Vera doesn't really have great rangy striking. You know what I mean? He hurts people when he lands a big hook on the inside, a nice, crisp, tight hook. That's when he's hurting people. Or a kick, a head kick, something like that. He doesn't really use his long, rangy attacks that well. I'm talking about his hands. He doesn't have a great jab. He doesn't have a great two down the pipe. He's lacking speed in those kinds of departments in the boxing range. I think Pedro Munhoz has the quicker hands. I think he's a little bit faster twitch, and I think he will be able to work around Marlon Vera's punching speed early on. And I don't think he's going to get knocked down by any big shots. And because of that, I'm going to pick him to win this fight by decision. I think he'll be able to land a lot of calf kicks. I think he'll be able to do just fine in the boxing. And Marlon Vera is going to land a couple of big hooks on him, but I don't think Pedro Munhoz is going to get rocked or cracked. And ultimately, yeah, Marlon Vera is going to be disappointed yet again. Honestly, I'll be rooting for Marlon Vera. I think he's just better for the division. He's more fun. I'm really not a big fan of Pedro Munhoz. I just think that his style is very dependent on getting a KO, very dependent on getting a finish out of nowhere. And I don't think that's going to come from a rock-solid veteran like Pedro Munhoz that's crafty. And I love the word crafty. If you guys were tuned into my Fight Night live stream last week, I'll definitely be using it this fight during the live stream, talking about Pedro Munhoz's craftiness and his low calf kicks. You know what I mean? Crafty is just another word for boring techniques, essentially. But either way, dude, Pedro Munhoz is crafty. He's a veteran. He's tough as fuck. He's fast. I think he's faster than Marlon Vera. The one disadvantage he has is reach in this fight. And Marlon Vera doesn't really use his reach all that successfully. So I'm going to go with Pedro Munhoz to win this one by decision. I think he's just going to run away with the leg kicks. And he's going to throw a little bit more volume. And he's going to get it done because of that. Ian Garry and Neil Magny. Does Ian Garry have what it takes to be the first man to put Neil Magny's lights out and TKO him since Santiago Ponzinibbio, which hasn't been done since 2018? Magny is very durable, he's tough, and he's a bitch to deal with because he's stubborn and boring as fuck, and he'll do everything in his power to put you into a clinch fest to where he's not really going to hurt you all that much. He's not trying to really take you down. He's just trying to do everything in his power to smother you and tire you out and make sure that you can't impose your will. You know, that's what he does. He frustrates people. I think Ian Garry has what it takes to beat Neil Magny because he's talked a lot about what Neil Magny does best, which is exactly that, just dragging you into a grind and a clinch fest. And the reason why I think he has what it takes is because he, number one, isn't as dumb as Philip Rowe. He's not an absolute fool. Phil Rowe went in there to fight Neil Magny, said that he had the perfect blueprint to beat him, and then ran right into the clinch with him. Like, literally voluntarily ran into the clinch with him. Ian Garry said that he's going to do everything to avoid that. He has amazing long rangy attacks. He's got beautiful oblique kicks, stomps to the knee, front kicks to the body. His front kick to the body is money. He's got an amazing jab, a beautiful jab. And one thing that I like about his jab, which is good for countering Magny, is that Magny is always going to try to grab a hold of you, whether he's going to try to trap your hands to get your arm, to drag you into the clinch. Ian Garry likes to parry people's hands. He likes to work around their hands to pop the jab in there. And I like that a lot for this matchup. And of course, he's got a nasty right hand as well with a lot of power in it, a lot of sting in it. Good leg kicks, good low kicks. Ian Garry has so many different weapons, and Neil Magny has a decent long rangy jab. He's got decent front kicks as well, but he's like a impoverished man's Ian Garry with his long rangy attacks. He doesn't have a lot of speed. He has a very long reach. I think he still has like a 6-inch reach advantage over Ian Garry, who, you know, has a pretty short reach for his height, but kind of knows how to use it, knows how to get in and out on someone. I don't think Ian Garry's going to KO Neil Magny. I think he's going to find his way in the clinch with Magny pretty often in this fight. Magny's going to do everything in his power to make sure he gets the fight to the clinch. I just think that Ian Garry is going to have many moments, like minutes on end, where he'll be striking with Neil Magny, outstriking him, popping him with good shots, hurting him to the body, and ultimately I think he's going to run away on the scorecards with the damage inflicted at range, because Neil Magny, he's not really going to do a whole lot of damage in the clinch. So I'm going to go with Ian Garry to win this one by decision. I would love to see a KO or a TKO. I just think it's going to be hard for him to get that going on a guy that's as durable, that also has the ability to fight behind his reach, and that is also a veteran that has the ability to clinch with you and kind of frustrate you a little bit. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with Ian Garry by decision because of that, because I see Neil Magny getting the clinch a couple of times in this fight. I'm a little bit worried that Gary's not going to have a whole lot going on the ground. Maybe Neil Magny's going to go out there and try to take him down. I'm sure Gary's prepared for that. Apparently, he's a black belt in judo as well. I just think that we're going to see Ian Garry hold his own. You know, I trust in this guy and his training camp. He's trained with a bunch of killers. He's trained with Usman. He's trained with Shavkat. He has a good team around him. He's went to Brazil to brush up on his grappling. It was a couple of weeks, bro. I just wanted to throw that out there. I know that doesn't mean jack shit. Training with Charles Oliveira for a week isn't going to do fuck all for you, really. It's just good to get the vibe out there. I'm going to go with Ian Garry, man. I think that he's not an absolute fool. I think that he actually has talent, and ultimately, these are the people that are going to beat Neil Magny. Magny separates the absolute frauds to the ones that are good, and Ian Garry is a good fighter. I think that good fighters usually have a pretty decent, well-rounded skill set, but I'm really looking forward to this, man. I want to see how Ian Garry does when it comes to stuffing takedowns from Neil Magny, or what happens if he gets taken down, what happens if he gets put on his back. Is he going to be able to get back up? Is he going to be able to threaten a submission on the ground? Or is he going to be able to shut down everything that Neil Magny has to throw? Is he going to keep this at range for the majority of the fight? And if he does that, I think it's very possible that he could find a finish. He could find a head kick, or he could just overwhelm Neil Magny. But ultimately, Ian Garry doesn't have a ton of power in his hands. And unless he's landing a flush head kick, I don't think he's really going to get a KO over Neil Magny. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go with him by decision, just having minutes at a time each round where he's at range, and he's just kind of overwhelming Magny by mixing it up to the legs, to the body, and to the face, and he's going to get it done. So let's go on to the next one. Zhang Weili and Amanda Lemos. Listen, Amanda Lemos beat who? Michelle Waterson and Marina Rodrigues. I was at the Michelle Waterson fight. I was there, UFC Long Island. Michelle Waterson absolutely sucks, bro. Like, literally, what? She the karate hottie mom or some shit like that? Fucking soccer mom? Zhang Weili's a fucking monster compared to her. Same thing with Marina Rodrigues. First of all, early stoppage. Incredibly early stoppage. Amanda Lemos still doesn't have power that can fuck with Zhang Weili. She still doesn't have grappling that can fuck with Zhang Weili. I know she's well-rounded. She's an impoverished version of Zhang Weili, and I think Zhang Weili is going to take her out and TKO her, or just, I don't know, maybe even find a submission. Dude, Zhang Weili ran through Carla Esparza so easily, and I know that's Carla Esparza, who's also a soccer mom that can't take a good punch. Zhang Weili hits like she's a guy, basically, and she's got that explosive, fast twitch ability. There are no shades of WMMA when she fights. She's really fucking good, man. Really good. And she also has the ability to keep it at a high pace for 5 rounds. She has the championship experience. She's had her losses. She's had her L's that she's been able to learn from, especially the 2 Rose Namajunas fights. She's had that rematch with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, which she was able to make look easy with the spinning back fist KO. And of course, coming off of that amazing submission in the first round over Carla Esparza, which was just beautiful to watch. I think Zhang Weili is going to go out there. She's going to put the pressure on Amanda Lemos. She's going to not fight her scared. Amanda Lemos, again, you're stepping up from fighting Marina Rodrigues, who really ain't shit. And who else? Michelle Waterson, that is a joke. Going from Michelle Waterson, okay, to Zhang Weili is like going from fighting, I'm trying to think of some fat, plotty heavyweight on the Dana White Contender Series that we saw last week, that Polish guy lose, to fighting John Jones. You know, that's like the level of difference between Michelle Waterson and Zhang Weili. It's off the fucking charts. And, you can't even finish Michelle Waterson until the second round. Like, I know that's a little bit of a bad critique, but we're talking about Zhang Weili here. We're talking about someone that's actually a fucking horrific champion to fight, that's just continuing to get better. Dude, all this woman cares about is getting better. There are no mental complaints. There's nothing going on here. No insecurities. It's Zhang Weili, for goodness sakes. All she does is train. She doesn't give a fuck about, I'm feeling sorry for myself this day. There's none of that, all right? She doesn't have those kinds of things going on in her head. She doesn't give a fuck about anything else but training, and she loves it, and she absolutely loves it, man. And now, Amanda Lemos is hungry. I'm sure she's a hungry, hungry woman. I just saw her on Embedded, eating fruit, eating papaya. There's something about fighters eating fruit that just makes me think like, yeah, they're in the trenches. You know what I mean? I saw what's his name? I saw Jelton Almeida at a fruit stand the other day. I'm like, that's a hungry, hungry guy, man. Amanda Lemos out here eating her papaya at the breakfast table with, I think, her wife or something like that, of course. Yeah, man. Zhang Weili, she's out there with the perfect diet. She's probably got a nutritionist. She's shredded. She's jacked as always. She's going to go in there and put it on her, man. She's going to pop Amanda Lemos in the face. I can't wait. I can't wait to see the level difference. You know what I mean? Amanda Lemos is going to go out there with her usual shit, and she's good. She's a good fighter. She's pretty good. She's a tough cookie. but she's going to get popped. She's going to get kicked. She's going to get outpaced, right? She's going to get out-volumed. And Zhang Weili, she has sting at the end of these shots. If this was Yan Xiaonan, I'd be more excited. I want to see Yan Xiaonan versus Zhang Weili, all right? That's the fight. I want to see it in China. Amanda Lemos, she's going to be a top 5 for however long she decides to stay in MMA, but she's not beating Zhang Weili. She just isn't. Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley. Guys, this is a very dangerous fight for Aljamain Sterling. This is more dangerous than Petr Yan. This is not a slow starter that's going to try to chip away at your legs and every once in a while go to the body in the first round. That's going to let it get away from them, right? Sean O'Malley's, from the get-go, going to be looking for the right hand to land clean on Aljamain's chin. He's looking for kill shots in this fight. He's not going to be doing a whole lot of kicking this time, right? Because O'Malley loves front kicks to the body. O'Malley loves leg kicks. He's going to have to taper that down because Aljamain Sterling is going to be looking to catch those kicks. I've seen Raulian Paiva catch a couple of O'Malley's kicks. You don't want Aljamain to catch your kicks. So the thing is, I think that O'Malley is a little bit handicapped. He can't do everything that he's used to doing. He can't ease into fights. O'Malley doesn't just knock people out in the first minute. So in order for that to happen, it's going to be very, very special, right? I just don't see that happening. He's going to have to stuff the takedowns, all right? He's going to have to evade them. He's going to have to turn Aljamain to the cage and then push off of him and get back in the center. If he can do this consistently a couple of times in the first round, it might only be a matter of time before he finds the chin of Aljo. And it's like, dude, when you're hurt by O'Malley and you're rocked, that's when he can open up with the kicks. That's when he can open up with the other weapons, the knees, the body shots. He has a very good shot selection when you're hurt. And a rocked Aljamain Sterling. Can you even picture a rocked Aljamain Sterling? Because I can, and it's not a pretty sight. All right? So I think that O'Malley can finish him, but I think that Aljamain's going to run across the octagon. He's going to get a hold of O'Malley, put him on the ground. He's going to pass over that guard like butter. O'Malley has a good guard. He's got decent jiu-jitsu. I know he submitted Takanori Gomi, which doesn't mean jack shit, because Aljamain Sterling doesn't fuck around in people's guards. This is the thing. When's the last time we've seen Aljo just in someone's guard? It doesn't ever happen, right? He passes over it instantly, and even if he's in it, he's going to maintain it. So this is what I'm going to say. Aljamain Sterling is going to take O'Malley down. He's going to pass over the guard instantly. He's going to get himself into mount. He's going to sink the hooks in. He's going to take the back of O'Malley, and he's going to start beating on him. Now, I know we have a new rule, but the thing is, I don't think they're going to break these guys up because Aljamain Sterling, he's always working towards a submission. He's always trying to tee off on you with ground and pound shots when he has you flattened out. And I think he's going to be punching O'Malley in the face or looking for a choke for the majority of the first round. I think O'Malley is going to defend pretty well, but ultimately he's going to get frustrated. The round's going to end. Rinse and repeat. The second round, the same thing. And at the end of the second round, I think O'Malley's going to start really trying to get up to his feet just to try to get into the fight. Like, fuck, I've been on my stomach for like the last 8 minutes of this fight. What the fuck? Like, I haven't even rocked this guy. I haven't even touched him on the chin once. And he's going to try to get up to his feet. And he's going to just expose his neck, man. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Aljamain Sterling. I'm going to pick him to win by submission or by TKO with O'Malley just flattened out. If O'Malley's doing everything in his power not to get choked out, he'll eventually just get hit enough to where the referee steps in. This is not Petr Yan. This is not Henry Cejudo that can shut down the grappling because he has a gold medal in the Olympic wrestling. You know what I mean? This ain't that guy, bro. He's not short and stubby and compact to be able to explode up to his feet. That torso is there for you to sink the hooks in. The long neck is there for you to take it. O'Malley is a very dangerous striker. If anyone's going to knock out Aljo, it's him. If Aljo struggles to get a takedown, he's probably fucked. I'm just going to say it. I know Aljo is funky striking. I know Aljo can still win a decision. He can have moments on the feet. But if he can't get the takedowns early, when you're fighting quick twitch early round Sean O'Malley, that's a bad man on the feet. That's a guy that can sting you with the right hand at any time. And everyone prepares for the right hand. I don't care how funky you are. O'Malley's fast enough to be able to land it. And Aljo, he dips his head off all the time on the center line. I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. But Aljamain on the feet, I want to see him kick. I want to see him jab. And that's pretty much it, man. All these step-in elbows and these big winning hooks, take that out of your game for Sean O'Malley. You can't be doing that shit. That's how you get caught. That's how you get countered. Aljamain has a beautiful jab. If you guys have rewatched that Cejudo fight, you know what I'm talking about. If you rewatch that Petro Yan fight, you know what I'm talking about. He's got a beautiful jab. He's got amazing kicks, beautiful body kicks too, front kicks. I like it all from Aljo. Stick behind the basics. He can do his thing on the feet. He's got a good chin too. I just think O'Malley, that takedown threat's going to be looming in his mind. He's not going to be opening up as much as he normally would on the feet. He's going to be a little bit tentative. And he's going to have to rely on that like one big shot. You know, he can't start peppering around. He can't start just flowing and jabbing and flowing and jabbing. I think Aljamain's style isn't really going to let him get into a groove, man. And because of that, I think he is going to get the takedown. If he really tries to go for it, if he really imposes his will and commits, he's going to get it. He's big, he's strong. His wrestling is improving. He's just getting better and better at what he does as a fighter. And he's at the perfect place in his career to where he's still in his prime. Even though he's kind of nearing the end of it, he's still in his prime. It's at the end of his prime. But he's the wisest he's ever been. He's the most experienced he's ever been. And I think mentally, he's in a really good place where he's hungry as fuck. Dude, if he wins this fight, that changes his whole life. You finish Sean O'Malley. You're going to fight Alexander Volkanovski. That's a big fight. You're the bantamweight GOAT in a lot of people's eyes. This opens up so many opportunities, man. So he really, really wants to get this one done. Now, of course, O'Malley's motivated as hell, bro. This is his first ever title fight. Everything in his life has led to this moment. This is huge for him. But it's like, dude, he's still young. If he loses this, he's probably going to be fighting for a title in the future anyway. I wouldn't even be surprised if the UFC gives this guy a title shot if he loses this fight in his next fight. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised. And ultimately, guys, when we look at the best grapplers in the world, the only time strikers can really match them and shut them down is if they have like a short and stocky build like Alexander Volkanovski. O'Malley has the direct opposite build. Unlike Volk, O'Malley didn't come from a wrestling background. That's what Volk was doing before he got into rugby. He was wrestling. And this is what Volk was doing when he got into the UFC. He was wrestling. O'Malley is a guy that has fought a bunch of strikers. You know what I mean? That's basically just been honing in on his striking and his jiu-jitsu. But at the end of the day, your jiu-jitsu in your competition format, I know O'Malley's training for MMA specifics, but like, I get the idea, I get the vibe that O'Malley's doing a lot of jiu-jitsu, where it's very pure BJJ competition style. And Aljamain Sterling has fantastic MMA jiu-jitsu that also has a wrestling background. And I think that just trumps whatever O'Malley's going to be able to do on the ground. And you can talk about his guard all you want, bro. People can get past it, man. You know what I mean? Petro Yan had O'Malley's back multiple times in that fight. You know what I mean? He's just not going to be able to climb your back. He's got those short, stubby little legs, and that's not his style. He's not as good of a grappler as Aljamain Sterling. That's not his bread and butter. But if Petro Yan can take you down, if you're exposing your back to him multiple times, Aljo's going to get that shit easily. I'm a little bit worried about the fence grabs. You know what I mean? I know that's possible. But if Aljamain is aware of that too, he might try to take O'Malley down in the center of the cage. But if that happens and he flattens him out in the center of the cage, ooh, man, it's nighty-night, bro. I'm picking Aljamain. I think he's going to get it done. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time.